Sarah Bumgardner with AAFMAA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. For 144 years, we have been serving our military community. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about women in the federal government, about an organization that is helping to advance the careers of women in the federal government. And I have Chanda Plair here, who is the Federally Employed Women's Veterans Affairs Monumental Women's Chapter President. Chanda has 22 years of professional government experience with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to learn more about you. And for anybody out there in the audience, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to drop those into the chat box, and we will get to those as appropriate. So first, Chanda, let's talk about FEW. How did Federally Employed Women start as an organization?
Where FEW started, first of all, FEW is a private nonprofit organization. It was founded in 1968. It was shortly after the government issued Executive Order 11375, which added sex discrimination to the list of prohibited discrimination practices within the federal government. Although the executive order, was a very important milestone, several women were concerned that the Civil Service Commission and individual agencies, may not put forth the vigorous efforts necessary to ensure the compliance with the order. And then there was the Federal Women's Program that had also been established. And the early organizers of FEW realized that, the government could potentially, dismantle the FWP, is what we call them, and wanted to ensure that there was always an organization dedicated to promoting equality for women and addressing concerns of women in the federal workforce. Additionally, because the FWPs are government functions, they're limited in scope and cannot lobby Congress. And as a private organization, FEW is not restricted in that area.
That's wonderful. So it kind of started as of a need to make sure that there was a place for women, that if somebody needed to raise awareness, raise attention, lobby to something, that there was kind of a voice, right, to be heard, that somebody could do that. That's amazing. That's so important. Can you tell me a little more about kind of the mission of FEW now in present time, and what FEW does to accomplish these goals and to really support women within the federal government?
Sure, I would love to tell you all about that. So FEW works as an advocacy group to improve the status of women employed by the federal government. This includes contact with Congress to ensure and encourage progressive legislation. FEW national officers, they meet with management officials at all levels of agencies to demonstrate support of the federal women's programs, also encouraging officials to support the program and to obtain insight on effectiveness of the programs at agency and local levels. FEW has 4 major program areas. They're compliance, diversity, legislative, and training, and I'll delve into some of those a little bit more. As far as compliance, FEW monitors the progress made by the federal government in achieving equal employment opportunity, evidenced by adherence to certain civil rights protections that are afforded in things such as Equal Pay Acts, Civil Rights Act, Anti-Discrimination Acts, etc. Also, FEW on the national level maintains very close working relationships with several federal departments and agencies, including the Office of Personnel Management, Equal Opportunity Commission, and the Merit System Protection Board, as well as the Department of Labor. As far as diversity, which is one of my favorite topics, FEW developed strategies to identify and eliminate barriers and increase diversity by examining different demographics of the workforce, looking at age, race, sex, ethnic background, religious, disability, etc. within the federal government. We also seek to expand the notion of diversity beyond categories protected by law and regulation to include such things as socioeconomic status, communication, and different styles of thinking. Also, family composition plays a lot into this endeavor. Diversity training is offered annually in person at FEW's National Training Program, via webinars to members and non-members, and at regional training programs as well. My chapter sponsors various training programs dealing with diversity, which I'll delve into a little later.
Yeah.
On the legislative front, the agenda works in concert with our mission of representing federally employed women's concerns and interests before legislative and judicial bodies. The program is one that is both is proactive and defensive in monitoring urgent congressional proposals and to assess the impact of women. FEW accomplishes our mission by establishing very close communication with the current administration and members of Congress. And we promote the needs and concerns of women in the federal service. And training, one last focus area, training. We strengthen professional skills and we expand knowledge by the use of various networks of trainers at the national, at the regional, and local level. We really want to increase the members' knowledge of the federal system, rules and regulations, also career development and planning techniques, and just making the women in our chapter, women, outside of our chapters as well, aware of the impacts and effectiveness of broader issues that impact women.
Yeah, that's amazing. Everything you all are doing is it's directly tied to and it directly affecting women, right? Women within the
Yes.
federal government, and making sure that because we have to have legislation sometimes to have make sure that everybody is being heard in that. And I love how you pulled that diversity piece in there. That even within women maybe being the minority within the federal government, that there's still diversity within women, right? And making sure that
Correct.
all women are being heard in what their needs are, whether through the vast things that you kind of outlined and what that could be. And as somebody who's been within the Department of Veterans Affairs for 22 years, I can only imagine you had seen hopefully a lot of really positive milestones come across. But right now, what do you think might be kind of the biggest hurdle for women within the federal government?
That's a very broad question, and thank you for that. But speaking based on knowledge as they're directly released to my chapter members, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of like reach out and kind of like gauge the audience and do post checks. I can say that we've had discussions concerning total body well-being, overcoming hurdles in the promotion process, maybe being able to properly note knowledge, skills, and abilities on resumes and or during interview processes. Also, taking information from various verified sources. One recent article that came out was dealing with like the new parental leave policy, which could, help retention and recruiting within like the military, which will give the parents up to 12 weeks of paid leave
Wow.
within the first year of birth or adoption of the child. So, and that was mandated by the 2022 National Defense Authorization Act. So things such as those have been some of the major topics of discussion within my chapter. Specifically, it depends on maybe various chapters and the local or national level things that we may address. So really want to focus on the pinpoints and the hurdles that our direct chapter members are facing within our chapter for the Monumental Women for the Veterans Affairs. We have an amazing, I would say we have an amazing group of women who are in our chapter. They're been so collaborative and just looking for ways to increase chapter membership and to spread the word, and even various affinity groups that our chapter has a network with within the VA, and also working closely with our Federal Women's Program Manager and also the Office of Resolution, Diversity, and Inclusion within the VA. So I can say that the VA has been very supportive of our efforts and initiatives.
That's amazing. That's great. That's wonderful to hear that that you're actually making strides in that. You just mentioned that it was just last year that this new parental leave was kind of expanded, and that's incredible, right? I think some
Yeah.
people might think, "Oh gosh, this has been there forever." No, this was last year, right? And it
Mhm.
took kind of the voice of people to say we have to be able to support our women in the federal government and what their needs are and how they're different, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So in your chapter, kind of you've talked about what you see as kind of some hurdles. What are some really positive steps that have been taken and the support, say, from the Department of Veterans Affairs in that? But what things or how do you kind of approach that to help overcome those hurdles with in making sure that those women in your chapters, their voices are heard?
Such a wonderful question, and I'm ready for it. So, our chapter officials and members, we really employ the model of shared knowledge is power. So, in that regard, our chapter, we host at least one to two events per month, which either build upon professional leadership skills, professional growth and development, personal growth and development, being mindful and protecting physical and mental health. Also, we looked at methodical work practices such as like Lean Six Sigma, reducing waste, things of that sort, which you can use across your professional and also your personal life and more. For example, some of the presentations our chapter has hosted in the last few months include career mapping to possibly obtain the senior executive service level, maximizing your impact within the professional and your personal life, and leadership advice. Also, our chapter officials are engaged in work groups and other organizations, which allow us to bring back vital information and or promote positive change for women. For example, I'm currently on a work group within the VA that looks at the job application process and any hindrances or challenges that women may face in applying for positions. Also, our chapter has a very strong working relationship with VA's Office of Resolution Management, Diversity, and Inclusion, and also with the Federal Women's Program Manager to better understand challenges, needs, pain points, and opportunities for women in the federal workplace. Also, want to point out that as a direct result of training and lunch and learn sessions that our chapter has hosted, many members have expressed that they've either received job promotions, they've been selected for leadership positions within the community, they've expanded their network, and a few have all actually been selected for the Leadership VA program, which is an enterprise-wide program, which is very competitive. So kudos to those persons. And overall, our chapter members feel that they have the abilities to apply for more challenging positions and have gained greater confidence in themselves as a result of the lunch and learn and training sessions that our chapter hosts.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like your chapter is doing some incredible work
Yes.
in really elevating individual women. And I love how you talk about the professional development aspect, being able to have a place, for the women in the federal government to come to say, what has worked for you to advance your career, what hasn't worked, what can I learn from, what can I do differently, or what should I be adding, and learning from those who have kind of paved the way in that sense to say this is where you can find your way forward as well. And I think that that's so important to be able to have that dialogue and that conversation. And it sounds like the right proof is in the pudding, that it's actually happening, that members of your chapter are saying, I'm taking what I've learned and I'm implementing it, and I'm getting that promotion, I'm getting to the next step. And that's just, it's so important. I want to just talk kind of just a moment about kind of the employees within the federal government, the women employees that might have prior service as active duty, right? They were employed by the federal government as active duty service members. And now we see a lot of times a transition to a civilian government position. And so can you kind of talk about what that support looks like, or what that looks like for those women?
Yes. Well, as far as our chapter, that's a very specific question, and that's probably more like a higher level as far as like department wide with the VA or federal agencies. However, there are a lot of initiatives going on right now with maybe hiring military spouses, making sure that women are fully engaged and ready to be hired within the workforce. Right now, specifically with VA, and I'm not a PACT Act expert by any means, but we have a lot of PACT Act hiring going on right now with the recent passage of that act, so everyone can Google PACT Act, and if you want to work for VA, come on. Very wonderful organization. But specifically for our chapter, I estimate that possibly, maybe based on my last survey, that half of our members are veterans. So we have members who are veterans, members who are not veterans, and also members, who may be affiliated with a chapter member. I'm very proud to say that my sister is a member of our chapter, and she is a retired senior chief from the Navy. So kudos to her. We have many, many more retired service members and our veterans in our group. Just want to say that our chapter does support many initiatives and events for veterans, such as Veterans Day Walk and Run for the Maryland Center for Veterans Education and Training. Also, we supported the Veterans Day ceremony at the Arlington National Cemetery. Also, we volunteered at national cemeteries for Patriot Day of Service, which carried the load. Um, and I'm also, like I said, almost a 23-year employee. And I can honestly say that our chapter members who are either VA employees or veterans take great pride in contributing to events which directly support or recognize the contributions of not only women veterans, but all veterans. So, being a chapter that represents, the VA, I think it's very important for us to always, tie that back into our work that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds like the takeaway is if you're a woman and you work in the federal government in any capacity, that you should be a part of FEW, right? That you should find your way to become a member and to become a member of FEW and make sure that your needs, your concerns, your voice is being heard in a place to do that and to advance your career, right, within that. So tell us, how can somebody become a supporter of FEW or even become a member of FEW?
I would encourage everyone to visit www.few.org. Our chapter is specifically noted as Monumental Women chapter. We're number 470. We have lots of chapters throughout the country, so you can join any chapter within the chart. You can click on the regions, and you can see which regions have which federal entities. Some chapters are combined with numerous federal entities. I think maybe such as like maybe the Federal Triangle chapter, so there may be federal agencies who are hooked together, but with the VA, we have currently we have one chapter, and this is our chapter. We have a membership committee chair for our chapter. Her name is Janelle Macy, and her email address is janelle.massey@va.gov. If you have any additional questions, the fees to join fee are very nominal, but the impact and the rewards that you will receive from being a member are outstanding. We also have a national mentor program, and I can say for sure that the chapter members and the chapter presidents across the region and nation, we are very supportive of one another. For instance, back in think it was August, don't quote me, but it was Women's Equality Day. We had so many events going on across the nation that we all supported one another. Also, we have Women's History Month coming up in March, and I'm pretty sure we're gonna have lots of events all across the nation. So we're very supportive, very collaborative, and if a member, transfer to another federal agency, they're welcome to transfer a chapter. So if you join a chapter, you have the fluid and the mobility to transfer to another chapter. And a lot of our chapters, in the wake of the pandemic, a lot of our events, we had a lot of virtual events. So don't think that because maybe you're in California that you can't join a chapter in, Virginia or et cetera. We have a lot of virtual things going on. So there's always something for everyone. And we also have, in-person events such as maybe we're having a regional New Year's sorority soon. So that's going to be exciting. But it's something for everyone in FEW. And I think as far as just learning about legislative process, training, compliance, diversity, because really want to champion for causes, that support women and support women who support women's causes. And do want to point out that FEW is not only open to women. FEW participation is not limited to women. Anyone who's concerned about discrimination based on sex and employment opportunities for women in the federal government are welcome to join FEW. FEW's membership is open to those who subscribe to the purposes of the organization and carry out its mission. It's a grassroots organization, and it's very, vital in effectiveness in, linking memberships together. So we have the local level, regional level, and we have national level. So that's our tier. You can see all that on our website. Again, it's www.few.org. So that is a lot of information, but I hope you have enjoyed the discussions. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free. You can reach out to me. Also, Chanda.Plair@va.gov, and you can drop it in the chat also. But I'm just so excited about FEW and the things that FEW has coming up. The training program is coming up in July, and that will be hosted in Ohio. So look on our website for that as well, and feel free to register. It's not just for members; it's for anyone who wants to gain a greater knowledge and understanding of, building your professionalism, personal matters, etc.
Yeah, and it sounds like that training event, as you talked about, really had some tangible takeaways that people were really able to find ways to professionally develop themselves further within the organization. Everything that FEW is doing is it's important, it's needed. As we come up, like you said, March is Women's History Month. So, this might be something to be thinking about as we start talking about Women's History Month next month. But I want to thank you, Chanda, for coming on and for explaining about you, how people can get involved, what your initiatives are, and how you're really elevating those women within the federal government. And I want to thank you for your service for 22 years in the Department of Veterans Affairs. So thank you for being here and for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful career opportunity. I was hired as an outstanding scholar, and I've moved, I think, 4 different times to the VA. If anybody wants to work for the VA, this is a plug. Come work for the VA. It's a wonderful organization. We were voted as one of the top, federal agencies to work for recently. So I think it's a great place to work, doing a lot for our veterans and our, our widows and dependents, and just a very noble cause.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will wrap things up there, but as Chanda said, please visit few.org to learn how to become a member or about those really important events that are coming up if maybe you just want to attend an event. But I'm Sarah Bumgardner again, and that will wrap up our AAFMAA Live for today. If you would like more information about AAFMAA and our dedication to service members and their families, of course, please join AAFMAA subscription found on the QR code on your screen. And I want to thank you again, Chanda, for coming on today, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.